welcome to Success Builders. We're so glad you're here with us. My name is Ryan, and of course, this is my co-host, Pastor Mel Mullen. Yes. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
So glad that you're here tonight. You know, we're in the start of a real big summer, and it's so important that we meet at this particular time. Of course, online, we had people, I was just talking to them from Lethbridge, we had people from different locations, Prince George, different locations that were online with me, and we're excited that many more are joining us right now, exactly. And then, of course, our program goes out to all of our international home church locations. It's going to be fantastic as we spread this around the world and help people become successful. That's what it's all about. Thank you so much. Give everybody a hand for coming tonight.
Yeah, and of course, we have so many people in the room who are here for the first time. Want to make sure you feel welcome and at home here, and you might be joining us from another church in the location. But if you don't have a church you call home, we'd love to invite you. Of course, Sunday mornings at 9:30, 11:30 here in Red Deer. We'd love to have you out. Now tonight, we have special guests for you. Of course, Pastor Mel is going to kick us off, and then we have a wonderful business owner whose business just went international. Just went international. Brad Rempel's with us. His wife's Christine's here, but she refuses to speak. That's a whole other topic. And we just want to say we're so excited for you to hear his story about what it was like to be at the bottom. The day he wanted to quit everything. Okay, you're going to be so encouraged when we come out of tonight. I know. How can we be encouraged talking about the bottom? But that's where many of us have been, and we need to be encouraged from there. Right?
You know, I was just talking to one of our business leaders, Kevin, about so many people, especially in central Alberta, are hitting the wall.
Yeah.
And it's challenging times, and so the theme we're talking about tonight, face it, overcome it, never look back, is so relevant to you and also to your friends, relationships, and business partners. So thanks for coming tonight.
Yeah, and to kick us off, Pastor Mel, why don't you take it away? Let's hear it for Pastor Mel.
Let's talk about this for just a moment. My job is to set the theme for every event that we have. Face it, overcome it, and never look back. It's kind of the grit that leads to glory. You'd say that with me, the grit that leads to glory. Now, that's not a business term, it's my term. But it takes some grit to get through life and operate in business. It's kind of oftentimes, it's like the breakthrough that you have to get through until you move into your full purpose. For instance, the story of David and Ziklag. He comes back to his city Ziklag and everything's gone. I mean, his wives, his children, the place is burned with fire, everything's gone. His men are picking up stones. They're going to throw it at him, and he has got to overcome. Got a word from God and went and recovered it all. Everything that was lost came back to him. That's the promise of God for us. If you face it, overcome it, and do not turn back. You know, what do you do when you're facing difficult odds? What do you do when you have unexpected setbacks? Everything you planned in life is all of a sudden set back or it's brought to neutral, and you're in a position where you don't know what to do, or can you even survive? That's really the question. When you have some disloyalty that can destroy your future, people are facing difficult odds today like never before. What do you do when it looks like you are through? Like it looks like you're through, it's over. I've had 3 times, at least in our history of our church here, I would say there are 3 major points when I could have quit. One of those points, I'll never forget, it was in the midst of transitioning from the church on the North Hill, and we were in a 4-year transition, and in the midst of it, I had a staff person that, number one, didn't believe in the vision of us doing what we're doing today. Secondly, he was an administrator that overspent. And our church was in financial trouble. I'm serious about this. Our church, the church you're sitting in, at that point was in financial trouble. And I'll never forget the day Heather and I got in the old blue car, she'll remember, and we pulled down. It was about September the 5th, 35 years ago. We pulled into this campsite. It was the worst weekend of the year. There was actually snowflakes coming down, and we were trying to sit by the fire, and we were in gloom and doom and wondering if we were going to survive as a church. And I remember sitting there by the campfire and talking to Heather and said, because the financial manager and administrator had really messed things up. You know, sometimes I'm working with business leaders who, you know, they had the multi-million dollar business or mega hundreds of millions of dollars worth of business, and then they put somebody in charge of their business, and that person did them a downer and put them in a position where they're either bankrupt or going bankrupt because they trusted somebody that did not come through. And of course, you understand this because you our accountant here deals with people with business that are going through all kinds of these situations. A large percentage of our population is actually in some kind of trouble, whether you believe it or not. But the kingdom of God is wonderful because if you face it, overcome it, you're going to get through, and there are solutions for you. And point at somebody, there are solutions for you. There's a solution to every problem. Well, I appointed Heather to be the financial manager at that time, and she brought us through. Somebody say amen. And Heather's work brought us through, and she just put the screws to the organization. She tightened the belt. She made the budget balance, and we got through that period of time and into this property right here. And you're sitting here, the result of Heather's work. Come on, somebody. And Heather got us through. Face it, overcome it, and don't turn back, and just get through to success in relationship to your life. You can make it, you will make it, and if you face it and get the help you need, the counsel you need, and a word from the Lord, just like David got at Ziklag, you will overcome every obstacle, every circumstance you face, and you will come out successful and winning in life. There's one word in the Bible, it's called overcome. It was written to the 7 churches of Asia, and every one of them had a different set of problems, but there was only one word that was essential. It was overcome, 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 overcome. You will overcome. Yes, you will overcome. And that was the solution for their problem. And they had to find out, they had to take certain steps to overcome the problems that they faced back in the early church. And here we are sitting around these tables in a post-environment of business and all kinds of challenges and circumstances that we're facing. But if you face it and you overcome it, you will win in life. And everyone in this room, plus all that are watching and listening, will be successful because your life is established on the Word of God. Now, I said to Brad, who's our speaker tonight, he's going to come and speak, and then we're going to have the interview, and then we may have some Q&A. And it was this: Brad, have you ever been tempted to quit? And then he told me his story. Brad, come and share with us tonight. Brad Rempel is our hero tonight. From local to global. Will you stand up and welcome him? From local to global. God bless you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, everybody. Well, yeah, you can be seated. Look to the person on your left and say, face it. Now look to the person on your right, say, overcome it. And now, all of us together, let's say, never turn back. 1, 2, 3, never turn back. That is exactly what we need to do. When I was given the title of this and they asked if could you speak on it, I thought, well, like, who can't speak on facing things and trying to overcome? I think all we have to do is look into our lives to figure out what we need to face and overcome. Growing up, I grew up from humble beginnings, and when I was 13, I really wanted a dirt bike. And my father, who's actually here today, give it up for him. He's awesome. He gave me $7 for an ad in the paper. And that ad in the paper wrote, young man looking for odd jobs. When I tell you I did everything, like I did. I shoveled manure, I did roofing, I worked at a turkey barn, and to be honest with you, when I worked at the turkey barn, I was 13. I was like this tall when I was 13. Those things scared me. They chased me, right? And so that same farmer, as I was working at his place, he goes, well, here, like grab a scraper, go paint my fence. So I scraped his fence, painted his fence, and he goes, well, good job, paint my sheds. So I scraped his sheds, painted his sheds, and he goes, well, good job, paint my barn. And so I asked my father, Dad, he's a baker at the time, will you come help me in the evenings when I'm done school to come paint? And his father was a painter, and I do believe he said something to the extent of, I will never be a painter. And Rempel's Painting and Drywall was born. And so he actually, the next year, my dad had quit his job, and we saw that company grow to something that had 20-some people working for it when I was 21 years old. But my love was music. It was what I really enjoyed. If you couldn't tell, this Jesus Revolution looking dude here, I'm a musician. Shocker, right? A little bit of a surprise. When I was 13, I remember I played my first live show with some friends at a youth group, and we played 16 songs that were just absolutely horrible. I was no good at it. But I mean, that's the way it always goes when we first start doing things. And while this was all transferring forwards, when I was 17, I won one of the Shine FM contests. So we got to go into a studio and record. It was on the record was called Believe. And that's it. The music bug had me, right? I was in studio recording, and I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. I'm sure my father wished that I didn't push so much time into there, because I kind of used the painting company as a back burner. And I can say this now because I can say it all in front of you. He's over there thinking, yeah, I know, right? Like you could have put a little bit more effort in there. But as I was moving forwards, we won then the next year with a different band. I won one of CJ92's Rock for the Cause contests. And I was like, yes, this is what I want to do. And then I found a group of dudes, all 20 years older than me. And I'll tell you, we can sure learn from older men, right? Like older men and older women. If you don't have someone to speak to, I really want to encourage you to move forwards with that. But I joined this 60s, 70s, and 80s touring band. And Dusty Roads is what they were called. I had to learn 63 songs in a very short period of time. And this band, I was the drummer. I played drums for this band. And I just realized, man, this is not how this is supposed to look. This is not what I want to do. And so I called 106.7 The Drive. And that was when you could do favors from Fooey. So I told Fooey, I'm a singer, which I wasn't. I had never sung in a band before. I just, speaking it forwards, right? You can do it. So you just speak it forwards. And I was like, I'm looking for a band. And so another group of dudes that was quite a bit older than me pulled me in, and the word baby was in the new album they wanted to release so many times that I was like, guys, like I'm gonna have to rewrite this if you want me to come join with you. And that didn't fare out so well. So I was kicked out and off on my own. And I decided, okay, I'm starting a band. We're gonna treat it like a business. And I started the band Tattered. In a very short amount of time, we got signed to a record label. And with that band, we got signed to a record label that was a subsidiary label of Universal Studios. And so I managed to, in 2014, we were on the world's biggest tour. I was on tour with Rob Zombie, Buck Cherry, Godsmack, Skillet. And I thought, this is it. This is what, there you go. This is what I'm going to do, right? We all had quit our jobs. And we thought, well, I didn't technically quit my job. My dad really didn't want me in this lifestyle. To tell you the truth, it's not a good place to be. It's very much the sex, drugs, rock and roll that you think it is. And so when I left on tour, I was fired. Yeah. I completely understood. As soon as I came back, I got my job back as soon as I was back on Canadian soil. But this is my father trying to encourage me, going, Brad, like, don't go do this. Right? It was something that when I was in my 20s, I wasted most of my 20s. But I got off this tour and I thought, okay, right? Like, what are we doing next? To not realize I was gonna now be in a lawsuit with a record label. I was gonna owe them 80 grand that was supposed to be covered on this tour. I now owed to them, and at the exact same time, got audited by the government. I was doing my taxes wrong for the past 10 years. Yeah, 10 years. Yeah, so it wasn't just a couple of years. I'm now sitting, $260,000 in debt. Coming back into a painting company going, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? So I realized it was time to restart. It was time to try and figure out something else. I really knew I wanted to get something lucrative. And at that time, the trades had been being squeezed so much. We were seeing the price of what we were getting paid come down more and more. I knew I had to do something different. So my brother-in-law, Daniel, who's my business partner, and one of the workers that worked for Rempel's Painting and Drywall, they were like, hey, I've got these 2 Jeeps. I want a coat. And I knew a product that I was hoping to invent. I wanted to take a bunch of existing things, try and schmuck them together and see, is this going to work? So I told them, you guys pay for this stuff. I'll spray your vehicles no charge, and let's get this rolling. And so that is exactly what happened. But I will tell you, those first 2 vehicles, man, they did not look good, right? But this is something that holds us all back. We're afraid of looking foolish, right? Anytime we start something new, we're gonna look foolish. That's just the way it goes. So if we're not willing to look foolish, then we won't start anything new. And if we don't start anything new, then we won't develop. So by that description, the willingness to be a fool is the precursor for transformation. And I want to say that one more time. The willingness to be a fool is the precursor to transformation. So if we're not looking to look foolish, it's going to be dang hard. I'm going to tell you that much. The first bands that I played with, oh man, we sucked so bad. We were horrible. I won't forget listening back to some of the music going, oh, that's bad. But it excited me. It scared me and excited me. And I will tell you, if something scares you and excites you at the same time, it's probably worth doing, or it's at least worth looking at. And my business partner, Daniel, he wouldn't agree. He's the numbers guy. He's the guy that keeps me in check. He's the guy that keeps everything going. I'm a head in the clouds, kind of floating around dreamer type of guy. And so when I say something scares me and excites me, he thinks about how much this is going to cost. I'm glad I have that kind of people, because I know when I started this business, I thought, I have to have somebody watch over all of my numbers, right? Because the reason I got in trouble last time was because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, this will work out, right? We'll get this stuff all figured out. We'll get the taxes done. It did not work good. So most of us are not that good. My one business coach, he has a really great way of saying it. He goes, if you're counting the things that you're good at and you get past this hand, count lying to yourself, right? Because really, we're only good at a couple things usually. Those are our strength zones, and we need to find other people to fill this missing puzzle pieces. So something excites you and scares you at the same time, I'll tell you, you should probably go for it. If not that, then something. We need to move forwards and do something. Often when a door opens, this is how I always see it. If I think of the door of opportunity, I'm a visualizer. I love to close my eyes and visualize things. I think of opportunity opening and door swinging open. It's got a creak. We got to give it an old haunted house type of, right? Creaks open and everything behind me is all lit up. I can see everything I've done. I can see everywhere I've gone. But that door that's open, the light's high. So there's enough that I can see where my heel goes. I can't see where my foot's supposed to land. And this is faith. In James 2:26, it tells us faith without works is dead, right? So James is telling us that deeds or actions are the byproduct of a living faith. Works do not justify us or make us righteous before God, nor are they the means to salvation. Rather, our deeds are the fruit that grows from one who is obedient to God's commands and transformed by his grace. So let's get out there and do something. Not be afraid to fail. What if it's a mistake? Right? You might tell me, Brad, what's if it's a mistake? Then it's a mistake. At least we can be sure of that. We can be sure of something, because I'll tell you, we're all going to make mistakes. And if we don't make mistakes, we're just going to be stumbling around trying to figure out what to do. But we need to keep moving. It's the only guarantee that things will change. Something to know if you're like, man, Brad, I'm too scared. I can't make change. I can't do this. It's been too hard. It's good to know likely the reason you're in the position that you're in is because of your decisions, right? That sounds something like, oh, well, Brad, that's not good. That means our own decisions can take us out of where we are. If we learn from our mistakes and we move forwards, we will fail forwards. And that looks a little bit like this. So often when we fail, we stack our failures on top of ourselves and we go, I just can't do it anymore. This is too heavy. I can't handle this load. Instead of making the mistake the next thing that you stand on and going, okay, I won't do that again. Oh, learned something. Oh man, I'm not going to do that one again. And I will tell you, this is how I built my business. I do not know what I'm doing in the chemical industry until I started getting into it. My foot got in, and that's when I found the people that helped educate us into moving. And guys like, do I look like a chemist? Right? I could have brought a white lab coat and walked on, and then it would have looked a little bit more like it. But this is God working, and it's just amazing to see what he has to do. Let's not let our failures weigh us down. I will tell you, the alternative is much worse. Doing nothing is much worse. It might feel okay right now because we're free from risk, but later in life, we'll see that this isn't the way to go. There's a great example. I was reading an article in the paper that was talking, they went to all the nursing homes across Canada, and they asked them, what's the number one thing you regret? Pretty heavy question, right? You would think it'd be working less, right? You'd think, man, it's got to be they wanted to work less, right? It wasn't going to buy the things that their hearts desired. It was opportunities they didn't take. That was the number one thing that people regretted, was opportunities that they didn't take. So let's go out and make some mistakes, learn some lessons. So this is where I started my company, Alberta Boys Custom. I didn't know what I was doing. I was stumbling in the dark. I tried hiring some chemists, and they were like, no, don't do that. That doesn't work. And it's like, well, no, it's already working. I'm just trying to get you to help me problem solve these things. So we struggled. Me and my wife, Christine, where's Ryan? Ryan, put up your hand. Yeah. Ryan didn't ask her to speak. I had to defend her. He was like, Christine refuses to speak. She looks over at me. She's like, he didn't ask me. And that is my beautiful wife. Christine, would you wave? Yeah. So when we were trying to move this forwards, I realized, man, I need to do something to advertise that's different than the rest of this province, than the rest of the group of people that are here. And I was like, what am I going to do? I thought, videos and pictures. Let's start taking some videos and pictures of things. Who am I going to get to do this? And I can remember this young kid growing up in our church. Many of you guys might know Dion Weeb, right? Dion's awesome. He's even doing some video work for The Chosen. But at the time, he was just a young guy, and he was always wearing a camera around his neck. And I'm like, that kid, we'll just give him a call. Ask him, hey, man, can you shoot a video? And he's like, yeah, I can. I'm like, okay, well, do you think it's, can you do trucks? And he's like, yeah, I'll be good. And he came down, and I'll tell you, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. In 2 Peter 1-3, it says, his divining power has given us everything we need for a godly life through our knowledge of him who called us by his own glory. Everything we need are within these four walls right here. God provides so many mentors and the next things that you need, but we need to search for it within the church. So if you haven't gotten plugged in, let me encourage you. With Dion, we started shooting videos, and the first one, it blew my mind. We published it, and in 24 hours, it got something like 60,000 views. And at that time, I was trying to build a truck. I was broke, right? I had to, when this business first started, I had to declare bankruptcy. I did. I was trying to pay off that $260,000. And after 3 years, I paid off $2,000 of the principal of making payments of $2,200 a month. So it was a hamster wheel. There was no getting out of this wheel. And I didn't want to declare bankruptcy because I thought, man, that's given up. It's one of the best things that I ever did. I wish I would have done it way earlier. And this is something that isn't said publicly very often. I'm sure glad that I did that. And then Dion started shooting these videos, and one day he just came back from Team Church, and church is about to start. I'm one of the worship leaders at home church, and church is about to start, and I'm playing drums this week, and Dion just comes up to me and goes, hey, how about we make a TV show? And he walks away, right? And he doesn't know that I'm just like, a TV show? Why not? And this is where I'm glad I'm my own boss, because if I walked up to boss and said, hey, boss, I need like $70K to shoot 7 episodes of a TV show. He'd be like, oh, what's the ROI? I'd be like, oh, no. I don't think it's going to make any money. I just think it's really cool, right? So this is, again, why I have numbers, people, because maybe I shouldn't always be the person 100% at the helm. So we got the TV show going, right? It got rolling, and the first episode I told Dion, don't tell anybody that we're doing it yet in case it sucks, right? And if you guys know me, I'm sure I probably told almost everybody because I have a really hard time keeping a secret. Don't tell me secrets. It's just don't. And that TV show, right away, the first episode I sent off to a bunch of people that I knew. BDS, Toyo Tires, and Fuel Wheels sponsored the show right away. And I was like, oh, like major corporate sponsors right away. This must be much better than what I had anticipated. We got it rolling, and actually season 2, episode 7, we ended with Brett Wilson from the Dragon's Den. I'm sitting there talking with him, and I'm fortunate that I get to give this guy a call every once in a while and ask for some business advice. But I got what I would call destination disease. I was so busy focusing on where I wanted to go, I was just forgetting about absolutely everything around me. So for like 7 straight weeks, we were shooting episode after episode, and then we started shooting for season 3. And one of my business coaches, Dan Weeb, donated a truck, and we were actually making a truck for the Edmonton Oilers. And so we made a truck for the Oilers, and there was 10 Flames, 10 Oilers playing on golf teams, and businessmen could come and donate money. We raised like $1.3 million for the Central Alberta Child Advocacy Center, and I thought, oh, this is awesome. To realize things weren't going nearly as good as I thought back at the business. And I got sick right after this. This is when all the stuff just opened back up, so none of us had immune systems. I just shook like 16,000 people's hands, and I went home sick. And I thought, well, I'm sick. I might as well look at the numbers. I hate looking at numbers. But I might as well look at the numbers, see what's going on. And I see that in like less than 4 months, we'd gone back almost 6 figures. I had employees that told me they knew how to do things that they didn't know how to do. And my right-hand man that I hired was stealing from me. And I was like, oh, what did I do? Going back so far again. Do I suck at this? Am I going to have to declare bankruptcy again? You know what? This is too hard. I want a job. My business coaches, they got big businesses. I'm sure somebody will be like, Brad, I'll pay you some good money. So I pick up the phone and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to call my business coach, Dan Weeb. I'm going to give him a shout and be like, you know what? I know he loves the stuff that I do. I'm going to call him, ask him for a job because this is just too hard. I call him, ask him for a job, and he goes, oh, Brad, where are you? And I'm like, no, don't come tell me to pull my head out of my butt. Like, give me a job, right? That's not what happened. He didn't give me a job. He came and he sat with me. He encouraged me, helped me move forwards. Yeah. But maybe you're telling yourself, Brad, I've made so many mistakes. I can't deal with another. None of these have materialized into anything. There's a mindset called learned helplessness. If you haven't heard of this, learned helplessness, it's a condition in which a person has a sense of powerlessness arising from a traumatic event or persistent failure to succeed. It is thought that it's one of the underlying causes of depression. So we need to destroy and overcome learned helplessness. Now, how can we do this? How can we overcome them? With the 3 Ps. That sounded funny, right? 3 Ps? Yeah, that works. Number 1 is permanent. My problem is permanent. And that's kind of freeing, isn't it? Oh, it's permanent. There's nothing I can do about it, so I'm going to go on to something else. This is one of the things that really gets us because we had something bad happen in our lives, and we don't want to get disappointed again. So our brain and our mindset and our walls go up. We're like, no, I could get hurt doing that. I'm not going to do this. But we call it seasons of life. It's not permanent. It's a season. So often we feel that we're somewhere and we're like, oh, this is going to last for forever. And man, it sure feels like it lasts for forever, but it doesn't. It's just a season. So right now, everybody, I want you to say with me, no problem is permanent. Ready? 1, 2, 3. No problem is permanent. Only our souls are permanent. Everything in this world besides God changes. That's why we call it seasons. Number 2 on the P's is pervasive. My whole life is horrible because blank, insert it. My relationship with my child isn't good. My relationship with my wife isn't good. I have this worker that just keeps giving me a hard time. I have this person that I work with that's just got it out for me. And we forget that we have like a beautiful family, and we have friends, and we have a house, and we have a vehicle that runs, and we forget about all these awesome things that we have because of this overcrouching pervasive thing. You know, it's something that we can't forget about. So many of us, and I know many of you guys here, we're living right now in what we prayed for. It may not feel like it because it isn't what it was. When I look at my business, I thought, I always want my business to be here. And you know what I always told myself too? That I'll never have a desk job. Guess what I do? I sit at a desk. I'm getting fatter every day. I know you guys laugh. I'll be Skeletor for life, but eventually I'll have this little paunch here. 3 is personal. There's something wrong with me. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. You know, this is garbage thinking. If we start to believe some of this stuff, it becomes self-fulfilling because we can just give up. Oh no, I'm not smart enough for that. So then we discount ourselves right away. This isn't something that we need to think. This is why so many business coaches and life coaches start with mindset. Right? I won't forget, we just recently started a coaching program, and I had one of the guys in our business come, and he was like, can I get down to this nitty gritty stuff? Like, I don't need any of this mindset stuff. Let me get down to the nitty gritty. And you don't realize that mindset is where it needs to start, because if we don't change this, nothing changes around us. We must destroy this thinking. You know, my Pastor Ed calls it sometimes stinking thinking, which, by the way, you guys, if you don't know, it is Pastor Ed's birthday today. Happy birthday, Pastor Ed. The stinking thinking, I read an article that put this perfectly, because a lot of the stinking thinking comes from the pursuit of happiness. That sounds nice, doesn't it? The pursuit of happiness, that's what we all want. But the pursuit of happiness is dangerous to overcoming. When life storms come along, this is guaranteed, it happens, then you're left with nothing if the goal was happiness. So you need to pursue something deeper. Then if happiness comes along, hooray, right? We don't want to despise it because it's fleeting. You know, we need to search for something more meaningful than what makes you happy. It's deeper. It orients you more properly, keeps you centered in life, and makes you more useful for your family and community. And this is the most important part of this. It's a relief for young people to understand the baseline conditions of life is difficult, but we can get ahead, right? We can prevail within those difficult things. I want to say that one more time. It is a relief for young people to understand the baseline conditions of life is difficult, but you can still prevail within it. So how do we change our mind, our thinking, to be able to overcome? One of the big things is rounding yourself with awesome people, right? And I'll tell you, there is so many awesome people in this room right here that would love to help you. So don't be afraid to reach out to a bunch of these people. Surround yourself with them. You know, so here I was with a 6-year-old business wondering, am I even going to continue? Should I even move ahead? Do I want to do this? And I didn't realize I was months away from a complete breakthrough, a complete turnaround of the way that my business would go. You know, here we are thinking I should open up all these shops, because our shop, Alberta Boys, we're thankful, we're very busy. We're always booked 4 or 5 months ahead. And I thought, well, I'm going to open up a shop in Edmonton. I'm going to open up a shop in Calgary. Staffing is always just very difficult and one of the hardest things that we ever face. But I thought, like, how am I going to even fill these places? You know, we were doing 400 quotes a week. That's how many people were contacting us for this product that we had invented that I'll talk a little bit more about later. Come find me afterwards. You know, so when I got Dan to come and he encouraged me, I didn't have like this big shaft of light that came down and it was like, Brad, you should do this. Dan didn't give me a roadmap of things I needed to do. What he did is he got me to tomorrow, right? Like, that's really what we need to do. We need to get to tomorrow. When the day is really hard, don't think about winning over the year. Think about winning that day. And I reached out to other men in the church, people to help me. You know, but maybe you tell me, Brad, I've got people around me. I know them well. They don't fit into this category of somebody that wants to move forwards, do things, help me. You know, I might say something that sounds a little harsh. I might say, so what? What are you going to do with these people? How are you going to move ahead? If they want to sit and wallow in misery and never change, one of the biggest things we can do, I'd say even it's an obligation, is to surround yourself with people who want good for the best part of you. Not people that want good until you start getting a little bit ahead and they're like, oh, whoa, man, you've changed. Right? If you start hearing these kind of things, we might need to think about the crowds that we're keeping around us. It's that old saying, show me the top 5 people you spend the most time with, and I'll show you your future. You know, show me a buffoon surrounded by geniuses, and I'm going to show you a future genius. Right? Show me a genius surrounded by clowns, I'm going to show you the new ringleader for the circus. Right? It's very, very true. But there's people that come into our lives for seasons that we stay with that we think we're supposed to be with them for forever. But it's a season. You know, I think of it like a rocket ship. We've all seen rocket ships taking off. And man, it's just crazy. So much potential energy, all bound up, and they're flying up into the sky. And when they reach a certain altitude, the boosters fly off, right? Because they're not made to go to that altitude. So sometimes when we're with people and they fall off and they fall aside, it's okay. They're not bad people. They're just not meant to go to the altitude that you're going to. And we just need to keep this in mind. But so much of this is wound up in our perspective, in how we think. So let me paint a picture for you. I'm the type of person that likes to close my eyes when I paint pictures, but I'm going to keep my eyes wide open. So imagine you're sitting still. You're on your deathbed. Your breath is quick and shallow. You know you're in your final moments. Every opportunity that was at your fingertips is now gone. There's only one thing left to do, and that's to die. You'll never see a sunrise, never feel its warmth on your skin, never again get to hold the hand of my wife or your husband and listen to their favorite song. Your kids have grown, and their kids have grown. And every day of your life has passed. You're sitting here on this bed, the last day of your life, and suddenly a light comes, and an angel of the Lord appears before you, and he offers you a chance. He says, if you would like, you can come back to right now, where we all sit, right here today. Of course, you take it. And here we are. We're now here, right now, today, in our young bodies. Well, some of us younger than others, I'm sorry. Yeah. Now, let's hold that perspective for a minute, though. How would this change your attitude about the things that you're worrying about right now? Would you let anxiety of the future just spin you out? How would you feel about your kids interrupting you or your wife asking you to do something? Would it open your eyes to the beauty all around you? And how would you go through today? I heard an awesome saying that we have 2 lives, and the second one begins when we realize that we only have one. You know, this last Sunday I was sharing for Father's Day, and I'd been asking God for the past decade, God, why did my musical career end? If you've given me this gift and this drive, why? Why did this end? And I wish that it came quick, right? Because it's not always in our timing, it's in God's timing. And it was last week's Saturday, so right before Father's Day, and I was going to be singing a song for the church. And I had something prepared, something nice to say. It was good. I even sent it to my pastor to say, like, hey, pastor, is this doctrine good? Right? And I'm proud of myself because I'm like, yeah, this is good. This is good, right? And I'm practicing down in the basement, and I'm singing the song, Graves to Gardens. And the part came where it said, you give beauty from ashes. And I just heard this voice that said, that's why. And I stop, and I'm like, what? I just keep playing. And I get to that part again, and I hear, that's why. And I stop and I think for a moment, and I was like, Lord, what is it that you want to tell me? And he's like, Brad, that's why your musical career ended. Because sometimes we need something to burn completely to the ground, so we change directions. You know, so right now, if you feel on fire, if you're burning, or if you're already burnt down and it's come down to the ashes, I'll tell you, something new is coming that's going to be so fantastic that God has for you. So what should we do to never turn back? How do we do this? The answer comes from a quote that I just heard the other day that I was like, wow, that's so good. It's sometimes when you're in a dark place, you think you've been buried, but actually you've been planted. I was like, oh, because it takes some time to get out of the dirt, right? It takes some time to have that seed get out of the dirt. So sometimes you feel like, man, I've been in the dirt for so long. When am I coming out? You know, this is why we find places to plant ourselves. If you're here and if this is the first time, I'll tell you, this is a great place to be planted. This is the place where you're going to find principles that are going to move you forwards in life. You know, actually, Pastor Erin was at our church this morning, and she said something awesome. She's like, Harvard just did a study, and they studied that people that go to church are more successful, are more happy, and less likely to get divorced. You'd almost swear God had a plan or something, eh? Man, it's just, Harvard said it now, so now people are starting to admit that it's true. No, but how do we move forwards? You know, God says, knock, and the door shall be opened. Seek, and ye shall find. Ask, and it will be given to you. These are all steps of action. They don't involve sitting on our duff and just waiting for things to happen. You know, I'll talk a little bit more with Ryan about it later, but I'm just shocked the way that things have happened. You know, right now, I'm speechless to say that I'm getting ready to move things to New Zealand, not myself personally, but we're opening training centers in New Zealand. We have 2 training centers in the United States. We have 2 here in Canada. We're about to go down to New Zealand. It's me. It blows my, guys, I will tell you, if I can do it, for those that know me really well, they're like, yeah, if he can do it, I can do it too. You know, and something that we miss out on is that God gives us everything we need within this house. You know, recently we found Garth and Melanie has joined with us. If you haven't met Garth and Melanie, yeah, I hear, yeah, let's give it up for Garth and Melanie for a minute. You guys are awesome. They've joined us. We brought business coaching in for everybody that joins our program. So when people come in and they join our program, they actually get 1 year of business coaching given to them to see them move forwards. Because I know that these are the principles that moved me ahead. And it's something that if I wasn't part and planted, if I didn't sit and talk, if I didn't seek and try to find people to come help me, I would have never run into them who are bringing something I could have never brought to the table. I guarantee you too, they probably just looked at some of my organizational skills and said, oh Lord, Brad needs this. Yeah, they're laughing because they know. No, but Garth on the first, so we get a win of the week every Sunday, either Garth and Melanie give us a little video. How are we going to win this week? And Garth had a really good one just a couple weeks ago. It was talking about a pilot flying, you know, and 1 degree of change. If a pilot is flying 1 mile and there's only 1 degree of change, he winds up very close to where he anticipated. If he's going 50 miles, he's going farther and farther away. But when we go 10,000 miles away, that 1 degree of change brought us in a completely different destination than where we were going. So it isn't like we need to go home and just drastically change our entire lives to go become successful. It's a small degree of change, just 1. And guys, I want to leave you with this last thing, because if there's anything that I have found recently to take and find where I'm going to put my time, this is something that I put up. Guys, put the slide up for me. No, last slide. If it doesn't bring you peace, profit, or purpose, then don't give it your time, energy, or attention. Yes, I absolutely love that. And you guys, thank you so much. Ryan, I'd like to invite you back up here, buddy.
Brad, that was so great. You can just stay up here with me. That's super. Hey, I love what you just presented. This is Brad's first time speaking for us. What do you think, Brad? Awesome, have him back.
I tried really hard to not suck. Yeah.
Well, you know me, that's my favorite quote, don't suck. Okay. Sit with me, my friend. I love that you almost quit. That's hilarious.
It felt hilarious at the moment, yeah. Maybe not.
Okay, so what happened after? So you called Dan, he says keep going. You have an identity crisis with wanting to be a musician, and you end up at a trade show. How'd that happen?
So after I spoke with Dan, this is probably in September, this is probably the hardest Christmas I ever had, because I lost so much money and I was still debating, like, yeah, I made it through the next day, but am I still wanting to do this? And I was even working out. That's how much of an identity crisis I was having. Like, do I look like the type of dude that works out? I am gonna, Skeletor for life is where I'm sitting at. But I was in my basement and just reaching out to a bunch of guys, and that's what pushed me forwards. And then in January, we heard from a chemical company here in Canada, and they were like, we really want your product. Will you make us an offer? I had no idea what to offer, but I sat there, and I came in and made them an offer, and they said, we're not going to involve the American counterpart. We're only going to talk to the Canadian counterpart. That's us. And so I sat, and after a 2-minute presentation, he picks up the phone, and he starts calling. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm calling the American counterpart. This is too good. We have to do this. So the Canadian side, we signed up right away, got training programs in place, had people coming and spraying our product. But the American side, Americans get sued often. Right? Like it happens lots. And I think that they were probably just worried, like, man, if we join up with this, like, are we going to get in trouble? Are we going to get sued? So I was even pushing contracts to them, and I gave them like a 3-month deadline on this one contract because we were waiting and waiting. And it's now 8 months. So a little ways past my 3-month deadline. And we were supposed to have some vehicles at SEMA with them. So SEMA is the world's largest vehicle show in Las Vegas. And we were going to be in the booth, and then we were out of the booth, and then we could come, and then we couldn't come. So finally I just told them, look, I'm not interested anymore. If you're going to kind of, keep making this a little bit of a different deal, I don't know if this is something we want to move forwards with. But they're like, no, like we want to work with you. We'll let your clients' vehicles sit outside. And I thought, okay, well, I won't come then because vehicles outside, I can't staff, I can't put stickers on, I'm not interested to do anything. And 1 week before the show, like 1 week before you're supposed to be in Las Vegas, they call me and go, hey, the guy that was supposed to have his truck in the booth, his shop just burnt down. Can you put this truck in? One of my friends made a joke. He's like, man, Jesus burnt that truck down for you. I'm like, no, Jesus didn't burn down the truck.
Beauty from ashes, I think, was your quote from before.
There you go. And so we were there in Las Vegas, and I thought I was there to sign up people to spray our product, and I didn't realize I was actually there to show this to the world's largest chemical giants. And so we had people coming from all sorts of countries coming to see what was going on. And then the first day, Rhino Liners, the largest liner company, I have a product it's made out of the same stuff as box liner. It looks identical to paint. It's the right color all the way through. It's the only coating that goes on top of chrome with a lifetime no PO warranty. It's approved through the FDA, food grade certified, goes directly on wood, concrete, chrome vehicles. So we just really came up with something, honestly, like praise God for the idea. Yeah.
So good.
That's right. And so it's been a ride. Yeah.
So you ink this deal, and that puts you in Canada, U.S., and New Zealand now.
Yeah, so New Zealand, what happened was the guys came the first day we were at SEMA, and I won't forget, because the one guy came up and I said, yeah, like this is bed liner. And he looks at me like right mad, because it doesn't look like bed liner at all. And I grabbed a fender flare, and I flexed it 360 degrees, and it looked like perfect paint. I hit it against the table, and I unflexed it, and he's like, well, keep talking. And so they came back every day. All 4 days, and the last day they were like, this is why we came here. We've been coming for the past decade, looking for a product like this. We want your product.
Wow.
And these are the guys that run some of the largest paint companies in New Zealand and Australia. His brother's a client of his, and his brother buys over $7 million worth of liquid product that I could replace. So I'm praying, and pray with me,
right,
that we see this move forwards.
Interesting that the chemist said it couldn't be done, right? Like, because, the Bible says what man said is impossible. God says it's possible. Yeah. Right? And so there's so many ideas that you're like, oh, I don't know if that's even possible. Well, there's an example where you might think it's impossible. Oh, I've had too many failures. Oh, I went through bankruptcy. Oh, it sucked. Oh, I got stolen from. But God says, no, I have a way for you. Right? And so there's so many people we've talked to. And we were preparing for this, and we're like, he and I talked to a lot of business guys. And I said, hey, well, what are people struggling with? And it was like the same stuff. Financial struggle. Ready to quit. Want to sell their business. Want to walk away from God's blessing. Does it sound familiar? Ready to give up. Walk away from God's big promise. Right? And he was months away from the biggest deal he's written yet. Cool. Okay, so in this, I'm sure at some point you felt overwhelmed. Okay, you go from I'm ready to quit to now I'm doing international work. What do you do when you feel overwhelmed with it?
At some point. Yeah, like the whole time you feel overwhelmed, right? Like, I will say, like, I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to building a business like this because I don't know anybody that's built a business like this.
Okay, so back up. I'm going to ask that question differently. So knowing that like some of this stuff is too big for you, did it ever stop you from stepping out into it?
No, most definitely not. I know that.
But that happens, right? Like we just kill the whole deal because we go, it's too big. Boom, dream done.
You know,
Right?
usually I get the answer just in the nick of time. Like literally, someone tells you something the day before, detrimental things are happening, and then you're like, oh God, thank you. You know, it could be a little less close next time. I'd appreciate the warning, you know, like a month ahead of time instead of at that I'm sure it was me in the way somehow, but it's usually me in the way.
Right, so if you get the overwhelmed feeling and like, do you just push through? Do you call someone? What do you do?
I most definitely call people, yeah, and celebrate the little things. You know, like me and Garth, we call each other actually quite often just to celebrate something small. And some days you got to be like, okay, so like I made my coffee, I drank the whole thing and did not spill it on my shirt. This is going to be the win of the day, right? This is going to be the win of the day.
Amen. Amen. I've had those days.
I wore a white shirt.
I know.
I really want a coffee.
Okay, so you call Garth. How did you guys get connected? Like he seems to be a really important encouragement to you, Garth and Melanie both. Like, how did you guys get connected?
Well, this is where it's just important to always say hi to everybody. And I mean, I'm a super talkative person, but Garth actually came into our church. Was it over 12 years ago, Garth? Was it 12? Was it more? Yeah, around 12 years ago. And I was actually the first person to shake his hand when he walked into our church back when we were in the old blue building. He was coming off a destroyed marriage and things were just not going good for him. And he was wondering, man, like, what am I going to do? And here he is, and I shake his hand. And this is how we met. And lo and behold, over a decade later, he married one of the smartest ladies that's kicking around here in this place, Melanie.
Second smartest.
Yeah.
My wife's the first.
Oh, you see that? That's a smart man. And then we just started moving things forwards with a head. You know, they took big risk as well. They put some monstrous hours in. We thought, oh, we're going to make this program and we're going to do this. It's going to take like a small amount of time, right? I think they're still working on it. It's been months, right? Like, so both sides are really pushing ahead.
Right. Yeah, it's incredible because they were recording down the hall from my office, and they would come out of the recording studio and say, we just recorded 20 training videos. I was like, 20 training videos. Like, most people are good if they do one training video for their entire office, right? And these people are just cranking out quality product to move it into an international space. And you see that work and you go, jeepers, they're not scared of hard work. You know, that's important.
Yep.
Right? So how did failing, you talked about failing quite a bit. How did failing help you move forward and help you take risk?
Well, it starts to get rid of the options, right? It's like, I think, yeah, it's true. It's like, okay, well, especially when it came to making the product, in no way do I have a chemistry background. Now my family's grown up in coatings and, Rempel's painting and drywall, but these are completely different chemicals and everything that we have moving forwards. And so trial and error really helped me learn quite a bit. I can tell you 2,000 ways this doesn't work. Yeah, so usually when people make mistakes, I know what it is right away, but I have seen some new mistakes recently that have surprised me, so yeah, we're learning.
Like the new guys made new mistakes that you hadn't seen?
Yeah, I didn't think that there was I made a manual, a 12-page manual, and I thought, man, this thing is buttoned up tight.
12 pages.
Yeah. It's quite a bit, right? Like, we have 37
Brad.
shops.
Brad, you're hilarious. Most manuals that they put out are like hundreds of pages and say nothing. I bet you your 12 pages said way more than the 100-page manuals that we've seen in oil field and stuff, right?
100 pages, oh my goodness, yeah, I couldn't write
No, it's mostly fluff. Don't worry about it.
But it's been interesting to see where the company's going. In no way, shape, or form did it go where I thought it was going to go. I had a picture of where it was going to go, and I'm like, yeah, all these things, so great. It's completely different. It's going the direction that it was supposed to go, but the way to make it accomplished is completely different than I had anticipated.
Right. So what would you say to the person in here who has had a failure? It didn't go the way they planned. They're here kind of because one of us forced them to be here. Someone invited them, is like, you got to come tonight, and they don't want to be here. What would you say to the person who's had the failure and needs to give it another shot? What's your advice?
Well, that last slide that I played, if it doesn't give you profit, purpose, or another P that I can't remember off the top of my head right now, peace, thank you. That is something to really consider. And the person that invited you, if there's a person that invited you, get planted in this place. That's going to be the number one thing that I can say. If you want to be able to move ahead and move forwards, one is too small of a number to accomplish greatness.
Yeah.
So find some people to help you.
Yeah. I love that about your story, how, you look and you go, you failed on your own in the beginning, but you succeeded as a team now.
Yeah.
And that is so powerful. Hey, let's give Brad a hand, and Christine. And public apology, Christine, I know I didn't ask you. It was just so funny when we were preparing. I said, Christine, are you going to come up and join Brad for the interview portion? And she's like, nope. And so I just thought I'd out her and say she refused. Well, we're going to invite Pastor Mel back up. He's going to pray for us. Then we're going to sign off of live stream and do some discussion time. If you're joining us on live stream, make sure you get the discussion questions and look at those in your group, or even just think about them on your own. Pastor Mel, you want to pray for us, and we'll close this up?
Yes, I just want to pray for all of those in different groups, in different churches, and even those that are going to connect on, that you have learned what you needed to overcome, because really this is what it's all about. So Lord, everybody reach your hand out to somebody, and Lord, we just speak a word of faith that everyone that's heard this message tonight will step up, step out, and step into the plan of God and overcome whatever they're facing in Jesus' name. Amen. Thanks for coming on the line, everybody. And
we'll see you back here August 13th for our next event.